Welcome back to the Dig City podcast with Cory Palm and Dave Shondell. Coach, doing things a little bit differently this week. We've taken some heat from public address announcer extraordinaire Carson Tucker for not having this show on YouTube in recent weeks. So we're going back on YouTube specifically for Carson. And, there's no way we can't do this show this week coming off that big win at Penn State. That's the lead story, obviously, for the Boilermakers. Big 4-set win at Rec Hall. What did you take out of that match?
Well, number one, it was a nice win. I don't think it's the lead story. I think the lead story is we're playing Minnesota tomorrow, and they're really, really good, really talented. But we can go back and talk a little bit about the week past. Penn State's another really good team. They're in third place in the Big Ten and have lots of talent. They benefited from the transfer portal, picking up 2 all Big Ten players to start things off with a team that's already got plenty of outstanding players. And I felt like we could match up with them. I thought going into that match, if our players would respond and not get too caught up in being at Rec Hall and playing Penn State, a team that we have not had great success against. Nobody has over the past 20 seasons. That I thought we'd have a shot. And the longer the match would go, the better our opportunities would be. And our team competed. They settled in. First set, we didn't play real well, made a lot of hitting errors. They made a lot of hitting errors. I think that they may hit about 080 in the match, and we were just underneath that. But then both teams, I thought, got better as the match went on, and I thought it was a good competitive contest, and we won some 2-point sets, and 3 of them, I think, and that was enough to get the W.
Yeah, that's enough. You take W's however you can when you're out there. You mentioned Monday at your press conference that playing at a place like Rec Hall, playing at a place like the Devaney Center, playing some of these venues in the Big Ten, you don't know how the young kids are going to respond to seeing this place, this crowd, this atmosphere in person. You've got a very young team, particularly with, like you mentioned, Chloe having some history with committing to Penn State and then decommitting to come where we all think she belongs for sure. The way your young players responded to that atmosphere, couldn't really have asked for more, right?
Well, I think it's a statement about who our team is. I was just talking to our outstanding athletics director, Mike Babinski, just a few minutes ago, and sharing with him what I've shared with some other people is this isn't an ordinary team. Very seldom do you have so many fierce competitors that show up every night, in not just in matches, but in practice, to compete, to get better, to develop, to make others around them play at a higher level. And so that's the one thing we really have going for us, in my opinion. I think Eva Hudson and Chloe Chacoin are playing as well as any 2 left side hitters on one team in the country, because they're on the floor 100% of the time and they're doing so many things. Their arms are great. They compete hard. They just do so many positive things for our team that's a great building block. That's kind of a great place to start. As you know, Raven Colvin is starting to play at a really good level defensively. I think she's been the defensive player of the week a couple of times in the last 3 weeks. Her offensive numbers are starting to go up at the pace that I thought that she would once she got acclimated with our new setting situation. Lourdes Myers in practice and even in matches, but certainly in practice, is maybe as improved of a player as we have in our gym. And, Skimmer Horn had a great practice last night. And we kind of take for granted the fact that she's one of the best passers in the country. And we want more. We want her to get better here and get better there. But at the end of the day, the libero's number one job is to pass the ball, put the setter in a position that she can run the show, and then play great defense and compete, be a great teammate. And we're trying to get her serve even tougher right now. One of the things we worked on last night was doing some things different with her serve to expand, what she can do for us. But we just got a lot of really good players right now that know how to compete and are doing a good job of leading. And it's fun to watch as a coach.
For sure. I definitely wanted to mention the serve receive at Penn State. The Nittany Lions came in averaging over 3 aces per match on the season, a very successful season for them, and that's a pretty good number. They had 0 aces against your defense on Sunday, and I mean, like you've said, it all starts with the serve, obviously, but that's the beginning of good offense. That's the beginning of a good defense is a serve. The beginning of good offense is a good pass.
Yeah. Well, and I go back, my younger brother, John Shondell, who was, resigned recently, he was the staple behind that passing. He worked religiously with our players to develop that. So when you look at Skimmer Horn and you look at, Eva Hudson, you look at Allie Horning, they spent a lot of time in that gym passing and passing and passing, doing footwork, doing a lot of different things fundamentally to get to this point. So, we're benefiting from a lot of that training, but at the same time, now we're doing some things a little bit differently. And I think those things are also being fairly effective, and a lot more just competition in the gym right now, a lot of just going back and forth and making people accountable and trying to compete as hard as we can, because that's what this team does. But yeah, I mean, I think that when you can put 3 or 4, 5 people, obviously Emily Brown came in and I thought saved the day a little bit for us with the way that she played against Penn State. So you have several people that are solid back there passing, and you don't go very far in this sport without that kind of consistency, passing serve.
To be able to have that kind of depth and to be able to use that kind of depth in match is huge and leads to really good success, obviously, in the Big Ten. You guys now 13-6 overall, 7-3 and alone in 4th place in the conference. That's a good place to be at the midway mark. A game behind Penn State, which is fine at this moment. You have them again coming up in a couple weeks, so some chances to make further inroads on the top 3. Like you said, Minnesota coming to town tomorrow. That is the key focus right now. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Gophers. They're as hot as anybody in the Big Ten right now. 4 straight wins for Minnesota. What have you seen so far from them on tape?
Well, they may not be as hot as Nebraska, who's won,
Fair.
I think, their first 10 in the Big Ten. But I think that they recovered. Minnesota, as many people know, Keegan Cook is the new coach, replaced Hugh McCutcheon, who was an outstanding coach at Minnesota for quite a while. And Keegan was at Washington, where he had tremendous success with the Huskies in the Pac-12, and made the jump from one conference to the other. And it's not as easy as it sounds to have everything running like clockwork in your first Big Ten season. But they have won 4 in a row. They had a tough road trip out east a few weeks ago that got a lot of attention. But they've also beaten Oregon. They've really beaten a couple of really, really good teams, including Oregon. And so you have to look at what they're capable of doing. And they returned the Big Ten Player of the Year from last year, Taylor Landfair, who's 6'5" and is just a monster of a player. They have the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year that transferred from Ohio State, and Kylie Murr. They have a 2-time All Big Ten setter in Shaftmaster, who's 6'3" and seems like she's been there for longer than 4 or 5 years. They have an outside hitter named Wooker that played on one of the USA teams that both Chloe and Eva played on, and has a rocket of an arm. Transfer from Cal named Grote that was all Pac-12 at Cal Berkeley. So they've got a lot of really, really good players. And we're going to have to play as well as we can play on our home court to be able to beat this team, because they've just got a lot of quality players, and they'll be ready to play. They put their back up against the wall a little bit. And sometimes you think that's a bad thing, but it can certainly bring out the best in a team, and we have to be prepared for that.
That's for sure. I know the thinking with Minnesota has been some conversations I've had. At some point, everything is going to click together for this team. You think it kind of has to. You just kind of hope every opponent in the Big Ten hopes that it's not tonight against us that everything clicks. And certainly, this team, I know you said your team is not scared of anyone. Minnesota can bring their A game, and your team's going to hit the boards knowing confident they can win.
Well, I think so. We'll find out when the rubber hits the road on Thursday night in Holloway Gym. We'll have to play very well.
Yeah.
And both in this league, everybody's always prepared for each other. You've had a lot of matches to watch on tape, and each team is pretty much who they are. As I mentioned, I think that we are progressing nicely as a team, and I like the way that this group operates with each other. There seems to be no love lost between any of them. I mean, I think they really appreciate the fact that they get a chance to compete at this level, and everybody wants to play, but those that are not playing are supporting those that are playing, and vice versa. So it's a good situation.
That's excellent. That is a 7:00 start tomorrow night in Holloway Gymnasium, live on the Big Ten Network. If you can't make it out, if you don't already have your tickets, be sure to don't miss that one. We're going to take a break, Coach. When we come back,
How do you get a ticket at this point for that match?
You beg the head coach for any that you might have laying around his office.
The head coach is all out of tickets right now. But, it should be a great crowd. It's a rare Thursday night affair in Holloway Gym, so I'm eager to see what that means for our students and our community. But my goodness, we have to have our best crowd of the year in here on Thursday night for that match.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that Thursday, Saturday schedule you've got after the break. We're going to also touch on the Illini a little bit, road trip to Champaign, and a few other fun things to discuss after the break. Dig City Podcast is presented by Franciscan Health Sports Medicine, inspiring health. Franciscan is the official medical services provider of Purdue Athletics. Now back to the show. All right, Coach, after the Minnesota game on Thursday, you head to Champaign to wrap up the season series against Illinois, who've also won 3 in a row. The Fighting Illini present an interesting set of challenges. It's a team you've seen head-to-head. It's a team you've seen up close thanks to that non-conference weekend that we had. What are your thoughts at this point on the Fighting Illini?
Well, they're a team that during the 20 and a half seasons I've been in the Big Ten, we're probably dead even with. It's just been that kind of a rivalry where Illinois has had good program, good teams, good coaches, good players. And this year really is not any different. Raina Terry may be the hardest player in the league to slow down, about 6'3.5", left side hitter. That's a great server. A great offensive player, tremendous blocker. So you start there. Their middles have gotten much better. They're good in that position. They've got a setter that I think is making really nice progress and has also unleashed a jump top spin serve that's made things difficult for opponents. The fact that we beat them over here will only have them fired up more when we visit Huff Hall. So I know that's down the road a little bit after Minnesota, but our staff is certainly looking at Illinois, and we're going to be as ready as we can be for the Illini, because we know that it's kind of like it's not quite the same as Indiana as far as a rival is concerned, but it's the next closest thing.
Absolutely, and it's the quickest a quicker turnaround, I should say, than you've had. You've been on this Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday schedule. Now it's a Thursday, Saturday, 1 day in between instead of 2 or 3. That's a little bit more traditional. So it's not unusual, even though Thursday, Saturday might be a little different than the Friday, Sunday. But just going back to that 1 day in between, including travel, does that present any sort of a challenge at this point in the season?
No. As you know, Cory, it used to be Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And we got used to that. Nobody was using excuses for not being prepared when you played on Friday and Saturday, and it was extremely difficult to do in this league. So to have the Thursday, Saturday with 1 day in between, and you're playing a team that you've already played once this season, and they haven't made a lot of changes as far as personnel is concerned since we played them last. I think they're pretty much playing the same group of people. So I don't think that we have to reinvent the wheel with how to go about trying to beat them. I prefer having more time. I think it's been great, what we've experienced so far this season. Number one, your players, it benefits your players to have that kind of opportunity to rest, recover, emotionally and physically prepare for whoever is next. And but I think we'll have ample time to do that, playing here at home on Thursday and then making the hour and 40-minute trip over to Champaign on Saturday. Well, we'll do it on Friday, but we play them on Saturday.
Certainly helps that drive. It is a less than a 2-hour drive across, rather than having to go to the airport and get on a plane somewhere, settle in. One interesting thing, we've talked about the Big Ten a little bit last week. One thing we failed to note last week was what a great weekend of volleyball action it was. Every weekend's great, but last week in particular, you had number one in the Big Ten standings playing the team they were tied 1 and 2 basically, playing in Nebraska,
Right.
and then 3 and 4 playing at Penn State. To have the top 4 head to head, both on national television, both with pretty prime spots on a national spotlight. Just volleyball continues to be getting a lot of national attention, and it's just one more sort of feather in the cap for the sport.
Well, I give so much credit to the Big Ten Conference, the administrators, the organizers that have allowed volleyball to flourish. They have not put any cap on what volleyball can do. And that's what so many people were doing for so long, was that, volleyball was as my dad used to say, a hit and giggle sport was what people used to refer to it as. And I think anybody that watches women's volleyball now, and it's hard not to watch it because it's on so much. If you get on tonight and you have the opportunity on your TV to have a streaming app, you're going to see volleyball all over the place. And it's been the best thing for our sport because lots of sports fans that were not familiar with the game are now, watching it, and they're understanding it and learning more about it. And it's been the best time the last 4 or 5 years for our sport, and in particular, the last 2. I think I've just seen gigantic gains in popularity, and I don't see any reason that's going to stop. I think that will continue as the sport gains more viewership and more interest. It's just a great time for our sport.
It is, and with added attention comes some added scrutiny, and I'm going to scrutinize things a little bit here, maybe unfairly. I know I'm talking to a voter on the AVCA coaches poll. The poll came out this week. The Boilermakers were up to 16, which is a great spot to be in, up to 15 in the most recent RPI. One thing that was confusing to me as a fan was you have head-to-head wins over the 3 teams ahead of you in the coaches poll, including Penn State 3 days ago. It's an odd thing. I know coaches a lot of times will say polls are a snapshot. They don't really matter. How you're doing, how you do at the end of the season is what matters. But did that confuse you at all when that came out on Monday afternoon?
No. I think it's a body of work.
Okay.
And I do think you have to put more emphasis on what's happened lately, but I do think that the entire season matters. And when I think people look at the losses that we had, 1 to Loyola, who's about 70 RPI, but will continue to improve because I think they've won 11 in a row, which is why we scheduled them, was because we knew that they were going to win a lot of matches this year. But we lost that 1 in 5, first weekend of the season. And then we lost a match to Northwestern. I'm just mentioning those 2 because those are the lowest 2 losses on as far as RPI. And I think Northwestern is around 60 RPI. And so I think people look at that and say those are not good losses for a team that is trying to get a top 16 bid. But then you can also look at some other matches, and I think Nebraska is the number 1 team in the country, and we were nose to nose with them through 5 sets. You got the win over Kansas, Kentucky, Penn State, and then some other top 25. I think we're 5-2 against top 25 in the RPI. So at the end of the day, the people that do the real computing, which is the committee, they're going to pay more attention to the RPI than they're going to anything else. And right now, we're not that far apart between RPI and our ranking. So I was not surprised by that. And those 3 teams you're talking about, I had them all ranked ahead of us in the poll that I submitted.
Okay. That's good to know. That's why I ask. I know if I had that question, a lot of our viewers and listeners probably had a similar question. So it's good to get that explanation. And so everyone knows, I completely blindsided Coach with that question. He did not know it was coming.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's kind of the way it works here on live streaming.
It is. We like to keep everybody on their toes. And you don't know this is coming either. We're going to wrap it up with a really fun thing. You had your annual, what's become an annual tradition, the Halloween practice earlier this week. Folks can go to social media to see some of the really, really fun outfits that some of your players sported on Tuesday, I believe it was, for the Halloween practice. Talk about sort of how that came to be and why that's important to you to do.
Oh, I'm not sure that it is that important for me to do,
Okay.
but we had a really, really good deal about 3 or 4 years ago, kind of coming off of the COVID deal. And we had Halloween, and everybody, including the old ball coach, was dressed in Halloween costumes. And we just felt like at that point in time, it was a good thing to do, to kind of make sure we were enjoying the experience. And players like to do it. For some reason, they just love to dress up for Halloween. It's become a much bigger deal than it was when I was their age. But they like to do it, and they had some great costumes. I thought that the Wizard of Oz theme was particularly impressive. That was portrayed by our freshman class. And we had some Smurfs and a lot of different things out there. But it's fun. We don't actually practice the whole time with that. Right. We let them go out and play a little bit of 4-on-4 or whatever else, just so they can get a photo shoot as necessary. But then what I was more pleased with was just how quickly they shifted gears and got focused on preparing for our next match and having a good practice, because it was a really good practice last night.
That's important. And that's one thing about having Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to get ready for a Thursday night match, is maybe it afforded you a little bit of 15 minutes that you can spare for some fun and to let the girls have that release. That's really awesome. Also, your Gru costume a few years ago was, I can see why you haven't dressed up since, because it was the ultimate mic drop. There's no,
you can't beat. Yeah, hard to beat that. What a great matchup I was for that guy. Two really, really fine looking people.
Absolutely, folks. If you want to see the full video, we're going to try and get some of it here for the show, but the full video is available on social media. I know our communications, sports information director, I'm not sure what her official title is, but Rachel Coe, it does a great job of making sure that all gets shared with folks so they can see the good time you're having, in addition to getting ready for the Gophers.
It's been a really good season so far, and our people, both Rachel and who's our other gal? I always forget. Morgan. Morgan is our videographer that travels with us everywhere and is the first person off the bus, throwing suitcases off the bus wherever we're at. Just does an incredible job. Both of them do. So we're really lucky to have that. And I don't know why I always forget Morgan's name, but it just seems to be the thing I do.
Morgan Landis, she's been with the team for several seasons now and does a great job, no doubt about it.
That might have something to do with how old the ball coach is.
Yeah, maybe.
She's great. Our support staff is off the chart. And I try to remind our athletes that all the great things that they have here at Purdue, but nothing more important than the people. I also talked to them after we played Penn State, and we played at Happy Valley, got on an airplane to come back at 4:00, and 5:35 we're landed in at the Purdue Airport in West Lafayette. So it's a pretty good setup to have, and we're very thankful for those benefits that the university provides for us.
That's awesome, and always good to be appreciative of that and give credit where it's due. And there's a lot of credit. There's a lot of folks behind the scenes that make this gigantic machine work, and to show gratitude is always a great thing. And that's something.
I guess you'd be one of them too, Cory. I guess we should certainly slap you on the back as well.
Not at all. Not at all.
Because you are a behind the sscenes guy, although right now you're kind of out in front on camera. But for the most part,
I've got a face for radio, so
behind the scenes guy. And but anyway, we're really looking forward to that match on Thursday. I think it will be a crucial match for us as far as how far we can climb up in this Big Ten chase.
Yep.
because I think the team we're playing is thinking the exact same thing. So it should be a real good contest.
No doubt. 7:00 Thursday on the Big Ten Network. Rachel did jump in to let us know during the break. Tickets are available on secondary ticket sites. So check those out if you want to go. Also, if you're in the Lafayette area, Huff Hall is an hour and a half drive away. Maybe you can get some tickets over there to see the Boilermakers and support your team. Dave,
yeah, we always have a great turnout at Huff Hall, and I think that we'll have some students that will be involved heading over there, and a lot of local people will make that trip and probably get a stop at the Beef House on the way over. So it can be a very enjoyable trip, especially if the Boilers play well and can find a way to win.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to 2 great matches and hopefully 2 wins to talk about next week.
Okay. Thanks, Cory.
Thanks, Dave.